try with a federation, the whole thing end in confusion. CARICOM and then CARIFTA, but somehow a spelling disaster. Mr. West Indian politician, I mean you went to a big institution, and how come you can't unite 7 million? When a West Indian unity, I know it's very easy. If you only rap to your people and tell them like me, them is one race, the Caribbean man, from the same place, the Caribbean man, that make the same trip, the Caribbean man, on the same ship, the Caribbean man. So we must push one common intention, is for a better life in the region, for we woman and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man. You say that the Federation was imported quite from England, and you're going and form a CARIFTA with a true West Indian flavor. But since CARIFTA started running, morning, noon and night all are hearing, it's just money speech them Prime Minister giving. But I say no set of money could form a unity. First of all your people need their identity like one race, from the same place, that make the same trip, on the same ship. So we must push one common intention, is for a better life in the region, for we woman and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man.
I thank you, everybody, who are here with us tonight to join us. First of all, I am dedicating the launch of my book, Tony Deyal Was Last Seen, to Catherine Stolmeyer White, her husband Gregory White, who were an integral part of the show until illness and surgery made it impossible for them to participate. And to my really good friend, Dr. the Most Honorable Anthony Gabby Carter, who yesterday was diagnosed with COVID.
Oh no.
But I hear from his wife, Sheila, that he is recovering. I'll now ask my cousin, Monsignor Gregory Ramkisoon could not make it. He got stranded in Miami. And what he has done is, while stranded in the airport, something we are all familiar with, he sent us a little video. Monsignor Gregory.
First of all, Tony and everyone there, I would like to apologize. I was coming in time for the opening of this book launch, but I am stuck in Miami. The plane we were in had to be returned to the gate. We're still waiting for another plane, so I'm not sure if we'll get in time into Jamaica to get on the Zoom. However, I did have the prayer, the opening prayer, and I would like to offer it now. Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord of all things, whose wondrous gift to us include the shining symbols known as words, grant that we may use the mighty power only for God and others. Help us pass on small fragments of your wisdom, truth, and love. Teach us to touch the unseen, lonely heart with laughter or the quick release of tears. Let us portray the courage that endures. I ask you to bless Tony, bless his work, bless this book that he's about to launch, that may open our ears, our eyes, unlock our hearts, and that may speak through his works, Lord, your will. We ask this through Christ, our Lord. Amen. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you all very much. But
Distinguished guests.
we always say when God can't come in, they send a man. And when Gregory couldn't make it, I asked my good friend, Father Peter Deyal Was Last Seen, to join us and say a few words in prayer. And Father Deyal Was Last Seen is here with us. Father?
Thank you, Tony, and greetings to all across the Caribbean. Father Gregory's prayer is very suitable, so there's very little I can add to it. This is to say that my concept of God is a God of mirth. And in that regard, I think that a person like Tony shares in the divine because of his fantastic sense of humor, his witticisms. And so, Lord, we ask your blessings be upon this Zoom conference, bringing together Caribbean people across the territory. We ask your blessings upon our one Caribbean man, Tony Deyal, that his publication will reach far and wide. And we pray that he will continue to be seen by us all. Amen.
Thank you, Father Peter. Thank you very much. My friend Johnny Kumar Singh has made human geography into two words with one academic meaning. His humanity is overwhelming, and his passion for geography is never ending. He's an author, teacher, parandero, and friend of all. But let me introduce him the right way. From Cambridge, China, then in Tong, Tony was born in Washington. Then he went to Faizabad Sea and then got moving in Sipari. If you want to hear the whole thing, this part will be headed by Kumar Singh. For all we know that Dr. Johnny is not just good, he's a real MC.
Well, he cannot just go free. I have to reply. I reply to that DT I can resist. I have to explain that I must persist. Today is a red letter day, so I want all of we to stay. Tony is a man who expecting that. For me to reply, I'll tell you flat. Tony come and he felt a choke. And look at now how he ran.
Good, everything going good. Yes, so far.
I would like now to
this week.
Welcome Mrs. Jasmine Simmons, who is the acting Deputy Executive Director of the National Library and Information System Authority, NALIS. She has a wealth of experience in libraries, spanning over 25 years, and includes short stints as Director of the Educational Library Service Division, Director of the Public Libraries Division, and more recently, Deputy Director, Executive Director of NALIS. She is a 2010 Salzburg Fellow and 2016 International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions Fellow. Mrs. Simmons has served on the UNESCO Memory of the World Committee, where she demonstrated a passion for the preservation of documentary heritage of Trinidad and Tobago. She is also an avid puppeteer, storytelling aficionado, and budding spoken word artist. She believes that it is imperative in this present period we create a media and information literate citizenry. Ms. Simmons is a champion for involvement with the NALIS First Time Authors Appreciation Program, a consistent feature of NALIS over the last 12 years. Now I give you Ms. Jasmine Simmons.
Mr. Tony Deyal, celebrated author and family, program participants, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, viewing and listening public, good evening. It is my pleasure to bring remarks at this occasion on the launch of Tony Deyal's book, Tony Deyal Was Last Seen. I have wondered about the title of this book and why the phrase Tony was last seen was inserted at the end of Deyal's articles. I do hope it shall be revealed, given that for almost 3 decades, Tony Deyal, through his published articles and travels, has been seen in Barbados, Belize, Antigua, Jamaica, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, to name a few places. Mr. Deyal is a true Caribbean man and has been described by Professor Kenneth Ramchan as the most widely read columnist in the English-speaking Caribbean. For this, we congratulate this author on his consistency, his flair, his humor, and most importantly, his ability to communicate his thoughts to his audience.
But let me know what it is.
Caribbean.
Yeah.
Mr. Deyal has written 1,500 articles.
Yes,
wow. This, however, is his first book, which is a compilation of 76 articles. He says one for each year of his life. In my position as Deputy Executive Director Acting and in my substantive position as Director of Heritage Library Division, I invite Mr. Deyal to be part of NALIS's first-time Authors Appreciation Program 2022, where he will be celebrated with other authors who have published for the first time during the period January to December 2021. The National Library and Information Systems Authority's First-Time Authors Appreciation Program is the authority's way to contribute to the continued development of Trinidad and Tobago's literary landscape, promoting reading, raising the public's awareness regarding the protection of intellectual property through copyright. Because Mr. Deyal's articles are Caribbean-centric, they are particularly interesting to NALIS and to our Heritage Library Division, which is charged with the responsibility of preserving, promoting, and exploiting our national heritage information and providing access to a comprehensive collection of information about Trinidad and Tobago, with particularly emphasis on what is produced within Trinidad and Tobago. The Heritage Library's collection is wide and varied in scope, extending to non-book materials such as tapes, DVDs, CDs, films, periodicals, newspaper clippings, records, photographs, slides, maps, stamps, and other electronic publications, artifacts, and memorabilia. The division has been working assiduously to collect oral history records from nationals from all walks of life, so that, like Mr. Deyal's 1,500 articles, the information will serve to leave a message to future generations. Congratulations to Mr. Deyal on the publication of his first book, and I hope to see many, many more in his future. So please permit me just to read a small excerpt from his book, from the chapter Searching for Hannah, if you will. Oh, I just got a minor technical snafu as it just closed on me. So I'm just opening it back again. I'm just opening, just give me 1 second. All right, so I think, yes, I'm here. It just closed on me for 1 minute. So I'm just going to, all right. Right. So I was a little boy of East Indian descent with a low haircut and a shy smile, neither of which was suitable to the situation. Eventually, the hair and I grew. The smile remained. Perhaps this is what attracted Hannah Campbell. We were in the college exhibition class together. She was slim and dark, with a handkerchief pinned to the shoulder strap of the school uniform. She had a wry twist to her face and a very sad look. I had no idea where and how she lived, but we smiled at each other almost every day as the boys played rescue and the girls looked on. One day, the magic show came to Piccadilly EC for the price of 6 cents We were entertained by Mr. Jang Bahadur Singh, an itinerant magician. I wanted to go, but had no money. Hannah wanted to go too. When she found out that I could not go, she gave me her money. She stood in the stony schoolyard watching me go in, sad yet smiling. I went to the show. It ended abruptly when following the intermission, the magician did not return. He had been mugged by some of my classmates and his money stolen. Ironically, the magician remained on the ground and the boys disappeared into thin air, as did Hannah. Eventually, when the river of our existence split into different tributaries, I went south to Saparia. She into some magic place where generosity is rewarded and love remains forever pure. Hannah Campbell is for me the essence of Trinidad. While in this 38th year of independence, there is much to lament, there is still much to be proud of, to be grateful for, to accept and to change. It will be a long time before we find Hannah Campbell again. Perhaps the search is more important than the solution. Maybe when we get to the destination, Hannah herself has changed. She might even be out of the country, seeking solace and her answers elsewhere. Or could she be looking at the little boy with a shy smile to get her 6 cents back? Tony Deyal was last seen saying that Trinidad and Tobago was 38 years old this week. If it wants to ever become 45 or more, it needs people of a higher caliber like Hannah Campbell. Thank you and congratulations, Mr. Deyal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons, for your kind words and uplifting remarks. We really thank you for being on this program this evening. Roxanne Branca, former executive editor of the Barbados Nation, who, as a Brian Lara fan, agreed to run Tony's Brian Lara, A Blade Apart, in the Caribbean section of the book, and would certainly have zoomed in to be here with us tonight. However, just a short while ago, Roxanne was wheeled out of an operating room. She was last seen arguing with her doctor that major surgery should not keep her from attending and participating in such an auspicious event. Actually, the truth is that Roxanne did have surgery today. She is still in recovery and regrets having to miss this event, but sent in a recording of the extract. Miss Roxanne Gibbs Branca now speaks.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, good afternoon. And of course, a special hello to our author, columnist, and my dear friend, this afternoon's honored guest, Mr. Tony Deyal. I met Tony in the early 90s, and when he was in Barbados, or when he came to Barbados, and it was around that time that he started a column in the Nation newspaper, which today still runs. It is my honor this afternoon to read one short paragraph from his recent book, Was Last Seen. My apologies that I'm not able to be there in person or via Zoom, but I arranged with Tony to have my segment pre-recorded. I will read from the chapter as lucky would have it. In the theater among actors, it is bad luck to wish anyone good luck. Instead, you have to say break a leg. The number 4 is considered bad luck in many Asian countries, and the number 13 is also perceived as unlucky. There's a story about a man who was with a lady in her room when there was a furious banging on the door. The frightened lady said to the man, "That is my husband. Jump out the window quick before he catches us together." The man replied, "But woman, We on the 13th floor, she chided. What happened? You superstitious? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And that paragraph, you will get many other such paragraphs with such wit from the book from Tony Deyal. Good luck, Tony, and congratulations once more. Thank you.
So that he can feel eerie.
Okay,
And so it began. Decades later, the Gleaner readers continued to enjoy his columns, which give a humorous twist to everyday life experiences in these Caribbean islands and beyond. I am thrilled to be part of this celebration of literature, whereby wit and levity are used to soften the hard edge of news. Miss Vivalin Gager is the former editor of the Jamaican Gleaner, where Tony's column started in 1994 and 28 years after is still going strong. Welcome to the floor, Ms. Viber, Ms. Gager. Ms. Gager?
Okay, are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Tony, I am really very happy to be associated with this launch. My wish is that Tony has a successful launch and that he sells lots of books and make loads of money. For as you all know, a newspaper columnist, even one who is syndicated throughout the Caribbean, is really doing a public service. The monthly stipend can't even pay the internet bills to deliver this work. So good luck, Tony. But I know, and you know, it's certainly not about the money. It is knowing that you touch people's lives, you inspire people, you educate, you entertain, you provoke even. A well-known professor in the medical field said this to me about Tony's column. I don't miss it. The humor with its twists and turns, plus the cultural history and the very relevant contemporary commentary is fantastic. I took a class with the late John Hearn at UWI, and he would say repeatedly, everyone has at least one story in him. By compiling his weekly columns, Tony has brought together in one place, a collection of dozens of stories inspired by everyday happenings around him. This led me to think about people like Andy Johnson, Bert Wilkinson, Franklin McKnight, Julia Johnson, Wesley Gibbons, and Lennox Grant, all well-known Caribbean journalists who I'm sure have many stories yet untold, and I'm using this occasion to urge them to get on with it. Tony wrote a column called Things That Make Me Go, and it's largely about the Jamaican language. Sorry. It's largely about the Jamaican language. This language of ours is efficient, it's colorful, it's expressive, and it's sweet. So sweet that one of the classic Jamaican curse word combos has an Austrian bear named in its honor. And if you don't know it and you don't believe me, then Google it. So I'm going to read from this column. Tony writes, looking at the cricket from Jamaica on television, I see a sign which says simply, this is Ting country. I agree wholeheartedly, not merely to the ownership claims of the ubiquitous citrus-based beverage which bears that name, but about the tendency of Jamaicans to drop the H from the English word thing and create a brand new word ting, as in no big thing. which is what one newspaper editor said when asked why he had run the picture of Mr. Bobbitt's severed organ. However, it is not only Jamaicans who do and say their own thing. We all do it throughout the region. It is totally, as they say in Trinidad, we ting. Every Caribbean country can lay claim to being ting country. This contributes to the distinctiveness of our culture and make us a ting apart. In Jamaica, the missing H is added to words like egg, omelette, and auspice. The word ting is used in many ways. In Trinidad, someone who is difficult, awkward, or hard to get along with is described as ting up. We say, don't worry with that man, him too ting up. Children wanting to fill one another with dread and apprehension about the consequences of a misdeed say, ting, 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 meaning time for some licks. There are a whole lot of other things. For instance, when asked about the state of their personal affairs, particularly their finances, many Caribbean people will say, things bad boy, things brown, or just things hard. Any unknown object is a thing, and things are generally possessed of a mind of their own, a stubborn cussedness which defies reason. You hear, I don't know what happened to this thing at all. The thing don't want to walk. Something wrong with this thing. If you are entrusted with the crucial responsibility for ensuring the provision of drinks for the picnic or party, you're sure to be asked again and again, you bring the thing? You're sure you bring the thing? While thing might be a colloquialism for intercourse, it can also apply to outer course or interplanetary sex. I once heard an interesting story involving the word thing in that context. In a bar in the country, this bad John or tough man sat drinking his liquor with his henchmen around him, when suddenly a stranger came up to him, smiled, and without warning, touched him on his ear, ting. The bad John was angry and upset, and he grabbed the stranger, intending to do him grievous bodily harm. Undaunted, the stranger smiled sweetly and again touched the bad John on his ear, ting. The bad John now was so angry that he started to laugh, almost hysterically, demanding an explanation. The stranger, smiling sweetly, said that he was from Mars. The bad John said, who are you trying to fool? He looked just like me. Smiling, the stranger unzipped his outer skin, clothes and all, and stood revealed for what he was. The bad John was stunned for a moment and then observed, you Martians look real funny. He inquired, what are you? Man or woman or what? The stranger grinned and said softly, man. This completely threw the bad John, who stuttered, but how you could be a man? You have you don't look like a man. How you make love on Mars then? The stranger smirked, looked at the bad John, and touched him on his ear, ting. This is where you're supposed to laugh, people. If I were to go to any corner shop in Kingston and announce that Tony Deyal's book is out, someone is likely to say, well, one no dead, no dash way. I feel we language that, and we're proud of it. Walk good, Tony, and congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Gager. You have spoken wonderfully about Tony, and I don't want to say and his thing, but thing has to be mentioned. Thank you kindly. We wish to welcome Miss Beverly Marin, a librarian in Dangriga, Belize.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Not too bad.
Thanks for having me being a part of this
Wonderful.
historical event. Welcome to everybody. I'm from Belize, Central America. Thanks, Tony, for the honor of letting me be a part of your book launch and for reading one of your stories. I'm reading a story, I'm a Belizer. The date is January 14th, 2004. It is a great and almost perfect. Almost 150 miles of barrier reef, unspoiled tropical rainforest, getting even rainier this past week. Maya ruins and a mix of people, languages, and customs that continue to astonish, amuse, amaze, and sometimes embarrass me. For instance, the common bellyful rock cake or Guyanese bun is known here as a powder bun, most likely from the sugar sprinkled on it. I did not know that when I first arrived. I went to a bakery and my eyes lit up when among the various offerings, I saw one that I recognized. What do you call that? I asked the dark-haired lady behind the counter. She hesitated. I asked again, enunciating my words very clearly and very slowly, adding a little bit of Spanish that I know apart from no. ¿Qué es este? It is a boulder bun, she said. Unfortunately, not realizing that she had recently come from one of the bordering Spanish-speaking countries, Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, or Nicaragua, I took her word for gospel. It turned out her English was worse than my Spanish, and she had taken powder and made it bolder, something which up to now was the domain and major preoccupation of Mother Nature, geography teachers, and quarry operators. It is an interesting metamorphosis. The reverse happened to one of my English buddies who believed the verbal journey from English to Spanish consisted of adding O or A songs to any Spanish word. Paying a visit to the home of one of his friends who had married a mestizo or a Spanish descendant Belizean, he was greeted at the door by his friend's mother-in-law. As is typical in the highlands where I now live, it can be very cold in the Caribbean standards, reaching as low as 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Trying to be as cool as the weather, my buddy remarked to the rather plump lady, mucho culo. Her face immediately reddened in anger. She slammed the door in his face and began shouting shrilly in Spanish. Confused, he knocked again on the door. His friend came out and demanded to know why he insulted his mother-in-law. It turned out he was right on the button with mucho, which means much. However, the pronunciation of culo is the same as Spanish word for rear end. It was not cool at all. It is like using the word embazar to mean embarrassed, which actually means to be pregnant. I committed a grossière when I used the word grocery when it really means gross. It's something I doesn't do again. Thank you for having me doing the reading and thanks for listening.
Well, the thing about Miss Marin, she had sent in 3 sentences, and I must read those sentences because they're quite important. I am honored to have been invited by Tony to be part of his partying crew to read from his book. And since I didn't meet him while he was here in Belize looking for saltfish, I am pleased to be one of his thousands of followers. Keep the prose flowing as you keep us entertained. Tony is a refined intellectual logophile whose love of writing keeps us rolling on the floor with laughter. Tony uses creative license to bring his point across in his stories, as his political subjects usually end up putting their feet in their mouth instead of on the road. Thank you kindly, Ms. Marin, for your contribution.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to Ms. Doretta Francois. Many trips to the Caribbean convinced her to make the region home, and she settled in St. Lucia, where a new career beckoned. Working as an editor and proofreader, having retired, she now devotes her energy to looking after rescued animals. In a comment, she lets us know from St. Lucia, where I worked at the Star newspaper, I have admired from afar Tony's testimony, tales and tattle, for he and I have never met in person. Doretta Francois will now give us her feelings about Tony and his book.
Greetings, everybody.
Greetings to you.
Thank you. I have known Tony for several years. I am proud to call him a friend, but it's true, we have never met. And I yearn to meet in person this intelligent, witty gentleman. One day, Tony, one day. I met Tony, encountered Tony through his weekly columns, naturally. I was obliged to read them because I was the proofreader at the newspaper in which they were published. My task was normally frustrating, but Tony made it a joy. Thank you, Tony, for making me laugh out loud in my office. I have chosen to read from God Have Mercy from August the 5th, 1999. There is something extremely fishy about the price of saltfish. Not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but also in Barbados and the rest of the Caribbean, where saltfish is a staple. Somewhere in the world, there is a mafia or some kind of cartel controlling the world's supply of saltfish and squeezing consumers dry. Undoubtedly, it is headed by a criminal mastermind or codfather who rules with an iron fist and who no vendor of saltfish dares defy. Anyone who flouts the authority of this kingfish, this Don codfish, and seeks to sell saltfish at reasonable prices most likely ends up in the sea with the fishes on a permanent basis. A clear case of nearer my cod to thee. Given the present price of saltfish everywhere, one wonders why the Colombian and other cartels bother with cocaine when saltfish peddling is a socially acceptable and legal act of commerce, carrying no penalty except the need for air fresheners. Even locally produced saltfish is generally made from and by sharks, as there is no significant price difference between the foreign and local products. It is just robbery on a small scale. Or, since sharks don't have scales, a financial transaction or finagle bordering on piracy. Tony's signature send-off always makes me laugh. This one, for this piece, gives double reason to smile. Tony Deyal was last seen denying that he was put out of the house because he had been caught in the act of eating saltfish surreptitiously. He said he left home of his own accord. Tony, thank you so much for making me laugh, and congratulations on the book launch.
Thank you so much, Miss Francois. That is a wonderful piece of saltfish there. You know, saltfish used to be very cheap. It was called poor people's food at one time in Trinidad, but now it is quite expensive. That codfish or godfish, as Tony would put it. Thank you once again. We want to welcome our next contributor, Dr. Fred Nunes. Dr. Nunes is the former head of management studies at UE Mona, an advisor to the president of the World Bank and to the director of PAHO. He conducted research and led the process for abortion law reform in Guyana. In his 3 sentences, he said, "Country boy from beautiful Port Antonio who moved to Kingston and is still in recovery, served the customary sentence at UE Mona before escaping into the greater Caribbean and beyond. Inevitably met Tony at PAHO, Barbados, and no longer cares to recover." Dr. Nunes, please.
Thank you very much. I have a passage from Tony that I would like to read. Let me say that I am thoroughly enjoying all the passages that have been selected. And this one reflects part of my escape into the Caribbean. And those of you who have been into Dominica will know. This is from Canefield and Cocoy. Like its history, changing hands between the British and the French 7 times, the physiognomy of Dominica is so full of ups and downs that there are only 2 places that airports could be built, and both are inadequate for large passenger planes. Those who enter by air to stay or do business in the capital, Roseau, have 2 choices. One is to come into Melville Hall, scraping the tops of coconut trees, close enough to choose your own coconut for picking. Unfortunately, Liat and the rest of its cutthroat air carrier competition, unlike the other pirate enterprises of yore, does not allow its passengers to carry cutlasses. Then, as you swoop down the forested ridges, you dive into a runway that seems to be running out of room, even as the plane touches down. Shaken and stirred like a bad martini, one eschewed by James Bond, you face a dive that should be 2 hours, a drive that should be 2 hours, but takes only 1 or less, through precipitous roads, scattering chickens and children, very much like Bond in his Bentley. The other option for the enplaned visitor is to land at Canefield near Roseau. However, only very small planes can land there. You sit crouched, cramped, and uncomfortable in a twin otter, utterly scared, as there is an unpredictable crosswind that blows from the mountains that can broadside your plane off the runway into the sea. On windy days, flights are diverted to Melville Hall. It is the classic choice between the devil and the deep blue sea. Fortunately, more often than not, the devil wins. I remember traveling with my former boss in Trinidad, Minister Horace Brooms, who is both claustrophobic and afraid of flying. Getting out at Canefield, glassy-eyed and trembling, he remarked that if he had a choice, he would swim back to Trinidad. It is possible that he cannot swim, but in this case preferred the blue sea to his old friend. When I read this, it really reminded me of my own experiences flying into Dominica, because I've used both airports. And the only airport, and I've flown literally all over the world, the only airport that has made me airsick was in fact landing in Melville Hall, where I had the displeasure of going to the little river next to it and puking my guts out. Tony, I love what you have done with your book, and I wish you all the success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nunes, for your contribution. It was well received. Thank you kindly. And next in line is Professor Emeritus Kenneth Ramchand. Kenneth Ramchand created and carved out the niche in the English world of letters that is known and recognized globally as West Indian literature. If this wasn't enough, Ken Ramchand is the major literary critic of our times. He was also an independent senator, lecturer, reviewer, and an author in his own WRITE, his own right. The most recent being Matters Arising, a collection of articles that he wrote over many years for the Trinidad Guardian. Now arise, Professor Kenneth Ramchand.
Would you believe it? This man makes jokes about hurricanes who hold family meetings to decide who to blow away, about murderous pirates in the Gulf of Paria trying to be Boise Singh, about journalists manufacturing false news, fake news, or bowing to their owner's voice, and island politicians slicing up the Caribbean into little personal kingdoms. He makes light of loss of hair, loss of teeth, and loss of memory. He makes impotence, heart disease, and death ridiculous. He makes fun of liars, thieves, hurricanes, and politicians. And he winds down on the skeletons of violence, corruption, and mismanagement in a society that is unceremoniously burying itself in its own rubbish. His readers know only too well that, like the Joker of Seville, the Joker of Siperi can indeed change to elation each grave situation. Death, the grave situation, is in the background of one of his pieces called Bad to the Bones. This is a fantasy inspired by the news that the Port of Spain General Hospital has decided to reopen its accident and emergency department with a skeleton staff. The writer behaves as if death is nothing and proceeds to imagine the settling in of the skeleton staff. There are some minor embarrassments. One thirsty skeleton went to the cafeteria and ordered a cup of coffee and a mop. Another dispirited bundle of bones refused to knuckle down and work at this particular hospital because his heart wasn't in it. Another lonely soul stayed away from the welcome party for new staff because he had nobody to dance with. But on the whole, the writer is convinced of the advantages of using skeleton staff at the hospital and would like to see the scheme extended to other government departments. At this point, the story shares out some licks. He is not sure the scheme will work, since all politicians already have skeletons in their cupboard. And in fact, they prefer mummies because they like to keep everything under wraps. When you read this book, you will see that the writer can divert you with a flurry of puns and other giddy forms of wordplay. He can shunt you into an absurd lay-by or switch you onto a track of fantasy. He can change the topic to bring momentary relief or give you a fix, a Saturday morning high with white dust and injections of stories, tall tales, jokes, nostalgic episodes, and ghostly shadows silhouetted in the pages of the past. You may take delight in the writer's comic devices, and from the safety of the shore, you can reflect on the ebb and flow of the lively surf at your feet. But you realize after a while that there is something grim in his jokes. He may satirize management and corruption at places like hospitals and government departments, but he has problems with another kind of problem. He is not able to fool himself about the dread and anxiety everywhere in all human existence. He tussles with angels and demons. He is perpetually engaged in a desperate human struggle with the existential dark and the echoing deep. What comes over with immediacy and clarity, however, is that even as he wrestles still Jacob with the unnameable, I said Jacob, he wrestles still daybreak with the unnameable. He clings to solid and fleshly ground, family, his sense of home and wider belonging, his immersion in cricket, and steadfastly pushes back against the signs and portents of societal doom. Societal doom is the burden of the ominously titled No Peace in the Valley, which reverses the hope. Which reverses the hope of the famous gospel blues song hymned by Mahalia Jackson and Elvis Presley, among others. We note that this is the only story by Tony in which there are no jokes. Upon the murder by local pirates of 7 fishermen belonging to a small village called Orange Valley, the writer sounds the alarm Code Orange, the internationally recognized signal of impending disaster. The story nostalgically remembers the lifestyles and folkways around Orange Valley and installs as an icon the resolute Ciudad Sadu, who built a temple in the sea when the plantation refused to allow what it calls a heathen religion to build a place of worship on what was a piece of totally uncultivable land. More pertinently, the story traces the encroachments upon and the erosion of old Trinidad. The cane farmers are turned into factory workers. A massive sugar company gobbles up almost all the sugar estates and factories and builds red roof bungalows for the managers, while the squalid galvanized shacks or barracks in which the East Indian indented immigrants were housed remain unadored. The murder of the 7 fishermen is seen as a cataclysmic event that definitively marks the end of the old-time days and tolls the establishment of the unholy trinity of capitalism, commerce, and industry. And what the story is really saying is, as goes the world, so goes the nation, and so goes Orange Valley. The story ends with the brave but intimidated response to the age of violence by the daughter of one of the murdered men. She said, "What I learned from this experience with my dad is that life is short and brutal. And the best way to combat that is with family, prayer, and a good laugh, and an ability to appreciate the small moments of joy despite any circumstances, because you don't know if this is the last time you will see them." Tony's comic mask is allowed to slip in some of the stories, as if to force us to see the mix of social and metaphysical strains in some of his writing. And in the following passage, the mask is removed completely, and he makes a very clear-eyed confession. It explains how his writing works, and it explains the attitude behind that writing. If you turn tragedy into comedy, laugh at things that should bring tears, then you regain control, if only temporarily. It is a brief flash of light into a soul-searing darkness. It brings temporary relief without changing the nature of the beast and the fear of the unknown that the darkness represents. It is a finite step into infinity. That's Tony writing, eh? This is a way of looking that I want to add to the ways of seeing that others may bring to Tony's work. I will use the time left to illustrate loosely some of the things I've been talking about. You can see the mix of social and metaphysical stories like Live and Yet Die, where he puts together an anthology of the last words of people on the edge of death. And he watches the horsemen of death pass by. Is it an interruption in the back? Somebody tell him to stop. Till Breath Do Us Part is one of several hurricane stories in his book. All of these stories register scenes of devastation left by hurricanes in all the islands. And all of them announce something we tend to forget: our human vulnerability to natural calamity. We are, as one article is titled, islands in the storm. More than that, while a storm is primarily meteorological, it is also symbolic, invoking the social and political turbulence that are unmaking our region. The situation in the story is this: a young hurricane is about to make his debut, and the older members of the clan have gathered to see the youth off, and of course, as elders usually do, burden him with family advice about which islands he should hit. Now notice some of the wordplay. In our language, Brett rhymes with death. The title, Brett Do Us Part, suggests the marriage vow and equates Brett with death, the great divider. The word Brett also invokes breath, life that the wild winds of the hurricane will blow away. Breath is not the breath of God, and the hurricane is not about to fill anybody with life anew. I want to close by reading from a part of the meeting of the hurricane family. They have already decided to spare Barbados and Jamaica, and now they're exploring other possibilities. What about those other little countries in the Caribbean? They have lots of bananas, and you know how our family loves bananas. Old great aunt Emily said, all in a word as usual. No, Emily, Uncle David chided. The Latin Americans and Europeans have got there before us, and the bananas might not be good for anything by the time Brett arrives. Well, Uncle Hugo rumbled, why not Tobago? You have to be crazy, Cousin Flora thundered. When I went there, a police stopped me for speeding. Well, Trinidad then, Uncle Hugo whispered lightly. You are becoming an absolute old windbag, Hugo, Cousin Flora said breathlessly. You want the poor boy to wind up a nervous wreck? The Trinidad immigration is on a go slow, and it will take hours for him to get into the country. Then they will demand that he get a work permit. The customs might think he is Guyanese and make him wait much longer, particularly if he bring in his wake a lot of boxes and stuff. He might spend all his time hovering over the airport. Yes, Auntie Janet piped in, supporting Cousin Flora. And besides, the poor boy has only one eye. And if he gets into Port of Spain, they will rob him blind. Thank you.
What I'm seeing here is that Tony Deyal has covered quite a lot of ground, almost everything in the known world, especially in the Caribbean. Thank you very much for your expose on Tony Deyal, Professor Ramchan. Thank you kindly. We'll now welcome Trinidad's own artist, poet, and man of letters, Dawad Philip. Dawad is a San Fernando-based poet, author, and massman. His latest collection, City Twilight, is available through Amazon and Aphora Press or the author himself. He is currently writing the stories and history of the San Fernando Carnival, Let us welcome Tony's comrade in arms, who were together when Tony decided to lighten the heart of their friend Black Stalin with Caribbean Man. Ladies and gentlemen, Dawad Philip.
Tony, I want to just thank you so much for having me. And I feel privileged and I feel honored and I feel that it's special to share a moment when your hard work finds itself being the cheese between two covers, so that we could be treated to some wit and a sense of our own Caribbeanness outside of always having to look at the darker side of our lives. But even when Tony does that we're able to find humor, and which is a vital and a potent kind of antidote for these times. So Tony, all the best. And I will read Bad to the Bones. It's from December 4th, 2002. Ken had used, did some brief excerpts from it in his piece on your work, but I'll read the entire thing. First, there were ghost gangs in the unemployment relief program. They took their money and disappeared into the fourth dimension, never to return. Then there were ghost workers drawing salaries for painting the National Housing Authority buildings. They moved from vanish to vanish as quickly as you could say Casper. Now the nightmare before Christmas continues. As if the health system in Trinidad was not scary enough, the Trinidad Guardian has reported the advent of a phenomenon that makes the Port of Spain General Hospital more like the setting of a Stephen King novel or a Western set in Tombstone territory. In its edition of Saturday, November 30th, 2002, reporting on the reopening of the Accident and Emergency Department of the Port of Spain General Hospital, the Trinidad Guardian headline read, "Casualty back in operation with a skeleton staff." First, I thought it was a hoax or practical joke or even an attempt to delude the public. What Trinidadians call trying a skull. However, in reading further, I realized that the paper was serious, and I was almost moved to write a letter of commendation to whoever had conceived of such a brilliant idea. Skeletons are ideal for such an operation. First of all, security would be boned up rather than beefed up. Normal human beings, as well as the people who frequent hospital casualty departments, would not be able to breach the hospital's defenses or gain entry unlawfully, since only the people in charge would have skeleton keys. Those of us who complain about the Northwest Regional Health Authority, its board of management, and all the allegations of corruption, misspending, stealing of supplies, and the covering up of malpractice and negligence would no longer have to worry. One sure outcome of employing a skeleton staff is transparency. Make no bones about it. A skeleton staff guarantees transparency. Skeletons may be numbskulls or boneheads, but they are not too smart to steal food from the cafeteria or towels from the laundry. Granted that you cannot pin anything on them, they still do not steal body parts for the sale of private institutions, since they know they will be easily discovered. Additionally, by using a skeleton staff, the problem of the overcrowded mortuary will be ended. After all, skeletons are people with their outsides off and insides out. Skeletons may have some difficulty in standing up for themselves. However, by the same token, they do not bow to pressure or knuckle under despots, doctors, or dictators. Most of them work hard, although some might be lazy bones. On the downside, they might be messy. One of them went to the cafeteria and ordered a cup of coffee and a mop. Another refused to work at the hospital because its heart wasn't in it. One refused to attend the welcome party put on by the Ministry of Health because it had nobody to dance with. And when one reached very late for work and tried to lie, explaining that it was chased by a dog, its supervisor said, "Don't try that. I can see right through you." On the plus side, skeletons are easy and cheap to maintain. Unlike the present hospital staff, they require no meals or meal allowances. In fact, they don't use the cafeteria food because they have no stomach for it. If they take anything at all, it is soup with plenty of body served on bone china. They never lose their cool or get angry the way previous staff of nurses and doctors did. No shouting and shutting down for them. In fact, nothing gets under their skin. They are very studious and are always boning up for exams. Even the few who might be tempted to get angry and make outrageous demands eventually back down. They don't have the guts to fight. On Sundays, they stay on the job instead of going to church. They have no organs. Instead of using the government service to send out all their Christmas cards and run up major expenses which the government must pay, they send their mail by Boney Express. They don't require any transportation allowance since, like vampires, they travel by blood vessels. They don't take coffee breaks, they take coffin breaks. Unlike ghosts, they don't make mistakes or boo-boos. There is no question that the use of the skeleton staff at the accident and emergency department would reduce the present excessive demand on the limited resources of the hospital. Most children would be like starched sheets, scared stiff. Most adults would hesitate unless they suffer from ghoul stories or coughing fits. On the other hand, doctors would be in paradise, having more time for their private practice, and the Ministry of Health would have more money to spend on the really important things, such as attending international conferences. I would really like to see the idea of employing skeleton staff extend to other ministries. Most government ministries already have the basic resources and need only the political will to implement the new strategy. They have all skeletons in their cupboards. However, I understand that most of them prefer mummies to skeletons because they like to keep everything under wraps. The leader of the opposition can also do with a skeleton since he has fallen out with everybody that he knows. What seems to have happened is that he did not keep up with his payments to his sleeping partner, the devil, and was repossessed. Tony Deyal was last seen at casually interviewing the staff with questions like, what do you call a skeleton doctor? Bones. And where do skeletons go to swim? The Dead Sea. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Dawad.
Yeah, Johnny, thanks.
That was very, very good. I like that article in his book. I really like that one. Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to Mr. Derek Jones, the former president of the Bar Association of Jamaica, and was the incredibly committed and constantly trying to sort out the many legal issues underlying the first and extremely successful Cricket World Cup tournament in the Caribbean in 2007. He was the first person to submit his 3 sentences, and given how quickly he did that, he should not have been a lawyer. He should have been a judge. He said, Derek Jones, who is ancient and who used to be a lawyer, delighted to be named as an old friend, honored to be part of this. Derek Jones is on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. I guess the first thing I'd like to know is, can I carry you around with me if I'm going to speak anywhere? Because I really kind of like that introduction, you know, and I could always use a friend like that. But I need to say a word to Tony, though. But Tony, you really humbugged me, you know. I did not know that I was going to be thrust into the middle of all of these distinguished people. I thought it was just a set of friends and limers and things. I didn't know all these professors and doctors and things. But I suppose that just like in cricket, somebody has to bring down the average. And so I'm volunteering for that. So greetings.
Well, you're most welcome.
Yes, and so total greetings to you, Tony, and absolutely a real pleasure to be here with you. I decided I would read a paragraph from The Breaking Point for Two Bedfellows. There are many different explanations for what causes two people to become strange bedfellows. Some blame religion and even resurrection. I think Tony probably meant resurrection, but he wrote resurrection is a typo. A few point to misery as the major cause. Then there are many like William Shakespeare who are convinced it is adversity, and others like comedian Groucho Marx who blame marriage. However, what I have learned, especially in the past few days in Trinidad and Tobago, is that politics makes the strangest bedfellows of all. This is why when dealing with politicians, you have to make sure you know what they mean. Inevitably, when they say run, the best bet is to stand up. And when they tell you to kiss any part of their anatomy, they expect you to ask, how often? Brilliant stuff, typical Tony Deyal. It's a real pleasure to be here. And to my old friend Tony, I will just use the Jamaican expression, enough love to you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Mr. Derek Jones. I'm sure Tony will be delighted to hear such remarks. Thank you again. My final task with introductions is to introduce Mr. Kamal Abdul, the second MC for the second half of the show. A little snippet about Kamal here is quite important. Kamal Abdul was born in Piparo. If most of us know where Piparo is, I'll be very surprised. It's a cocoa producing village. At least it was a former cocoa producing village. I don't know how much cocoa is being produced there now. A place where mud volcanoes erupt. At 15, Kamal went to live in Princestown for whatever reasons. He attended Mausika Teachers College and pioneered the Trinidad and Tobago Diaspora $250 book grant program to students of Trinidad and Tobago's heritage. He is the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Diaspora based in South Florida. He confessed that he is a natural bovine extruder of fecal matter. I want to give you due caution about Kamal. He sounds better than he looks. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me, Johnny? Hello?
No, I'm hearing you now.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I have it on it. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and all those who are online or we can't hear or see you. Thank you for being on this program. And Mr. Jones, I want to let you know that if you think you bring down the average, what about me? I have a PhD, a public high school diploma, so I understand about bringing down the average. And Ms. Gator, thank you for bringing up that name, John Hearn. I haven't heard that name for, oh boy, maybe 40 years. And I remember his short story, The Wind in His Corner. So thank you for bringing up that name. And Tony, it is such a pleasure to have the opportunity here. Just for you to know, I've always read Tony columns. And one day he came to Florida and he came up to my home and I took out about 6 or 7 files full with his articles. Because in those days I couldn't store it or didn't know about storage. And I used to print it and keep it. And whenever I have to write anything, I used to steal wholesale from him. So I want you to know that it was such a pleasure. Sometimes I used to pun like him. I remember once he came up and he took the car and he got a flat tire. Next thing I know, Tony's coming back home 2 hours late. He's all greased up. He's tired. I said, Tony, you're looking tired. So he already pissed off because he got a flat tire. So it was fun. And yes, Johnny, I did grow up in Piparo. In fact, our biggest fear growing up in Piparo was that if Jesus came back, he wouldn't find us. So we were concerned about that. I have the pleasure of introducing a very special lady. I think the name of village after her, for which I understand. She's a member of the editorial team of My Trinidad, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. Her 3 sentences are, I was born and bred in Superior, not far from Tony's stories, drawn to Earth's gift of flora, fauna, and beaches. I somehow create credible articles at the last minute after I catch up ups. Ladies and gentlemen, the name of you heard of was Sign Village. This is Margaret Sign. Take it away, Margaret.
Thank you for your kind introduction. Thanks for having me. Good evening, everyone, members of NALIS, fellow presenters, viewers, Mr. Tony Deyal, his family, and friends. It is indeed an honor to bring greetings from the Superior community and the past students of Ivy High School. Please accept our congratulations. Now on to the reading from page 219. My neighbor's mother, a quiet, church-going, highly respectable lady, also had mafia aspirations and sometimes would say to me, speaking in strident tones, Mr. Tony, you see me, I don't try. Other people in my neighborhood would speak of mafiosi like done gone and done give up. There is also done talk and done with that. In the bars, clubs, rum shops, and snackets, you would hear from sobbing men the exploits of done with she. The occasional woman would talk about done with he, or scream loudly to scare their offspring with done I tell ya. Money and donzai always seem to go together. Perhaps the worst of the lot is one and done. It is said that he got his name when a business acquaintance offered him a cigarette. He replied, tried it once and didn't like it. His acquaintance then offered him a drink. No, don't drink, he responded brusquely. Tried it once and didn't like it. When a young man joined them, the Don said proudly, this is my son. His acquaintance asked rhetorically, obviously an only child? Tony Deyal was last seen boasting that in spite of temptation, he is not in the mafia. He said that he is neither Don Juan nor Don yet, and I am Don Read It. On behalf of all of Superior, especially Peyton Place and Cassava Alley, Irie High School, the Meet with Irie People alumni, and last but not least, the team of writers of the My Trinidad magazine. I wish you, Mr. Tony Deyal, all the best with your book and your very existence as you use your magical artistry and your brilliant play on words. I wish you all that you wish for. Congratulations again. It was indeed a pleasure. Thank you and good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Thank you very much. And now I have the distinct pleasure of inviting a friend of mine. He's a great cook, although Tony said that I left out the R. He's not a good cook, but that's all right. He's the managing editor of the award-winning The Independent online newspaper based in Toronto, Canada. It is truly a digest of international news for minorities in the diaspora. Raina has been running Tony's Saturday column, Tony Deyal Was Last Seen, for many, many years, and is now the editor of My Trinidad, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, which he and Tony started 4 years ago. Raina is an international journalist based in Toronto who has been published by several major media houses in the Caribbean, Canada, and the UK. He has been an active member of the media for more than 4 decades. Raina Raj is also a single father and thinks he's a good cook, though the jury is still out in that. Raina, it is my privilege and my honor to introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Raina Maraj.
Thank you, Kamal, for that introduction. Are you guys hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here, to be part of this event for Tony. And Kamal, you will understand, only Tony could do something like this, where you could invite people to a party at dinner time, and you have to bring your own food, you have to eat your own food and drink your own drink, you know.
Correct. Yeah.
Like that. It's a really pleasure to be here because I know Tony for going on 40 years now, and our relationship has grown from being a professional one to being friends. And I am very proud of the fact that he has published a book finally of his columns, which we all enjoy so much. And I'm very pleased that we've been able to expand his audience into the diaspora, into not just West Indians, but into minorities in the diaspora. So there's that. I am reading from Tony the Terrorist, from the Caribbean section of his book, which was published on April 2nd, 2008. I'm just reading an excerpt. While Caribbean people might argue about which has the best cricket team, the tastiest beer, the prettiest woman, the dumbest politicians, there is one thing on which we are unanimous. No Caribbean person will ever be a suicide bomber. However you criticize our productivity levels, our laid backwardness and spendthrift ways, one thing you cannot accuse us of is being dumb enough to place a bomb on a plane and fly in that plane, or wrap a stick of dynamite around our waists and embrace some political or religious enemy and the opportunity to explore paradise in the same split second. It is why I always believe that the profilers behind the scenes of Homeland Security in the United States were not so dumb as to target people from the Caribbean. It is completely contrary to our nature and to our culture to damage ourselves. Some of us might be suicidal, but we are not stupid. However, one can never overestimate the intelligence of Homeland Security. Jay Leno, the irreverent late-night comedian, once quipped, "A lot of people are now criticizing Attorney General John Ashcroft for his policy on detaining what he considers suspicious people. I think he's going a little overboard. Today, he arrested the entire banned foreigner." Leno has also got a lot of laugh with. People want to say there isn't racial profiling in the airport, but let's be honest. If your first name is Mohammed and your last name isn't Ali, leave a little extra time. There is a story about a woman who went to her gynecologist for a checkup. she was extremely uncomfortable. Haven't you ever been examined like this before? Asked the doctor. Every time I fly these days, she admitted nervously, but never by a doctor. That's my excerpt. That's the piece I chose to read. Tony Deyal was last seen, saying that the security guard saw him reading a book and decided he was a terrorist. According to Conan O'Brien, the FBI was visiting libraries to check the reading records of suspicious people. O'Brien claimed, when asked about it, President Bush said, "I've always been suspicious of people who go to libraries." Well, let's hope now that Tony has contributed contributed this gem to our library system and our reading, both in the diaspora and at home, that many people will be going back to libraries and reading his books. Thank you, Tony, and good luck and congrats.
Thank you, Raina. Appreciate you. For those who may not know, I'm here in Palm Beach County, and we are going to have a launch of Tony book in Florida. I promise you, Raina, we're going to have food, man.
Okay.
We got food and drinks, man. You got to come. All right?
Yeah, good one.
Thank you, buddy. Listen, it's a pleasure now to introduce the chairman of Royals Publishing, Clifford Narayan Singh. Clifford Narayan Singh Company, Royals Publishing, I hope I'm pronouncing that name correct, Royals Publishing, has now been in the book publishing business for the past 35 years. Cliff is the author of many English language textbooks for primary and secondary school students in the entire Caribbean. And as an author and sportsman, written biographies on Sunil Gavaskar, Sachin Tendulkar, Brian Lara, and Trinidad's great race specialist Ken Mr. Solo Charles, and will soon publish a book on Shiv Narayan Chandapal, which tells the full story, the contribution that Chanda's made to our cricket and the way he was treated before he was dumped as a player. Folks, and let's put our thoughts together and let's welcome Mr. Clifford Narayan Singh, Chairman of Royals Publishing.
Tonight, I represent Royals Publishing Company, the company responsible for the production of this work. And we are most delighted to have been in charge of this venture. Our company, Royals Publishing Company, has been engaged for the most part in the production of curriculum materials, both at the primary and secondary levels, in response to the academic and pedagogical needs of Caribbean societies. For the past 35 years, our major thrust has been to provide material relevant to the social, cultural, and academic needs of a post-colonial society. Tony's request to support this publication met with our recognition that it can make on a wide reading community. We are convinced that this work will make connections and encourage meaningful transaction with the reader, as it invites the attention of multiple audiences: the sociologist, the historian, the educator, and the common reader. While the textbook remains our major thrust, we are making a contribution to the society by publishing work that can be classified as general reading. Although the work appeals to the society in which the writer lives and interacts, it has a wider universal appeal that would engage other societies. Tony Was Last Seen is literature worthy of a wide readership, inviting the reader with pieces rich in humor, full of wit, which transcend the pedestrian comic anecdotes which we are bombarded with. The interaction and the collaborative nature of the relationship during the publication has been mutually enhancing. And it is our commitment to engage multiple audiences. The book is available at all bookshops. You can also access it on Digital Canopy, that's Digital C-A-N-O-P-I, as an ebook. Now, Digital Canopy is a subsidiary of Royal Publishing Company, and it will be launching its digital publishing platform on December 3rd at 11 a.m. on OMG TV on YouTube. That's December 3rd, 11 a.m. on OMG TV. Now, before I close, I wish to read a piece from the book in which Tony takes a snipe at the legal fraternity. Through cricketing imagery, well contrived, this piece places the reader on the cricket ground, and makes a telling blow against lawyers. It's page 103. It's from the Rumpled and Sticky Wickets. Pad is another word that lawyers would like about cricket. They pad their fees to the extent that you have microwave lawyers. You spend 8 minutes in the office and they charge you for 8 hours. I'm sure there are more reasons. They make their pitch to the judge or the jury. They don't get punished for their mistakes or slips, since no lawyer will give evidence against another. They can spin the truth whichever way they want. They always have grounds for appeal. They should be handled with kids' gloves. To charge anyone, the high fees some of them demand requires balls. And the way they stroke their rich clients is incredible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nayan Singh, the man who decided to publish Tony Deyal Was Last Seen and helped bring Tony's humor, his travels, and his message of one Caribbean to all of us. Now, let us welcome and recognize a Trinidad and Tobago icon, an individual who has risen above the crowd and the pettiness of race, class, and nationality to create his own niche and his own place in our history. My friends, let us please welcome Mr. Reginald Dumas, former Permanent Secretary to the Prime Minister and head of the Public Service from 1988 to 1990 and chair of the Public Service Reform Task Force. He said that being here with Tony and the rest of us said, these days I sometimes feel might run me out, Methuselah might run me out. Not so, Tony Deyal, that unrepentantly Caribbean man who bats on with serene assurance. In this season of Diwali, I offer a figurative Diya in his honor, with profound gratitude for the light and the lightheartedness with which he has suffused our region. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege and pride, my fellow national, Mr. Reginald Dumas, who will read from Tony's Deyal, Catching My Grass.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is the last paragraph of the article called Catching My Grass, which deals with the difficulties he had with keeping his grounds in good order while he was living in Antigua. And it reads, it did not take me long to realize that employed or unemployed, it is preferable to find the money to hire professionals than attempt to mess with Mother Nature. I am not cut out for arguing the advantages and disadvantages of a mulching mower over one that throws the grass to the side, which, if you're not thinking, will cause you to mix up the cut and uncut grass, causing the mower to stall. I have allergies, and the cut grass makes me sneeze. I love electronics, but have never been one for noisy machines that do not differentiate between rocks, cassie, which is an Antiguan grass, weeds, and toads. What I believe I will do is go back to the basics. I will buy one of those Rasta hats complete with dreadlocks that they sell on the mall, sharpen my machete, and go out onto the yard singing by the rivers of Babylon. In other words, I will be the first original Rastafari. Thank you, Tony.
Oh, well, anyway, I was just complimenting you. I had followed your career in the service and I was always been proud of you. And I'm so happy that you are here on the Tony Deyal book launch. Okay, sir?
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Okay. And now to our next speaker, Marshall Deyal, the child is the first child of Tony. And we know that Marshall teaches English at Holy Faith Convent in Couva. She also has a master's degree in communications and was a journalist working with the Barbados Nation. She even had a scholarship in climate change. Does this sound familiar? Well, here are her 3 sentences. Marsha Deyal, a fan of Dragon Law, a cookie enthusiast and teacher, first daughter of the Frank Herbert reading, Moke driving, Kaiso loving, son of Siparia, Tony Shunan Deyal. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Marsha Deyal.
Hello, hello. Hi, Dad. Congratulations on your book. Very, very proud of you. Can you all hear me? Because it looks frozen.
We hear you.
No, we can hear.
All right, good. All right, nice. Well, when I was a teenager, my father did not have all this going on for him. He just had a local column. And every Saturday night, the family used to go from Couva up to the shops of Maraval and have a late supper. And we used to wait there until they published the Sunday newspaper. And then we'd go and buy it hot off the press, newsprint still staining our fingers black, and read my father's column. We're still proud of him then, and we're still so proud of him now, and even more proud because his anecdotes of his adventures across the Caribbean are now in a book. And one of the first articles I ever read, and I really, really remember very well, is his article on his MOOC. Because I remember laughing hysterically and then calling up and saying, Dad, this is real? Was there really a dog? And he's like, yeah. So without much ado and slightly abridged, here is running a MOOC. We in the Caribbean deal with our stresses and strains, our trials, travails, and tribulations, the agonies and ecstasies of daily lives, each in our own particular and often peculiar ways. Some of us run a mile, some run amok. I run a MOOC, a mini MOOC. I use the term run in the strictly British sense, as in, understandably, one runs a Bentley at Balmoral, but when one is at Buckingham, one runs the roll. I am in Barbados, and here no self-respecting Bajan runs a MOOC. They might run from them, particularly given the way American tourists drive, but they never run them. No Bajan youth aspires to the ownership of a MOOC as a rite of passage towards a Maserati, a Mercedes, or even a humble Hyundai. Self-respecting Bajans invariably refuse rides in MOOCs, claiming, it's all right, I ain't going far. I have no such problem. My MOOC is cost efficient and uses gas by the thimbleful. I pour scorn on the luxury sedans by remarking disdainfully that they can pass everything on the road except a gas station. My MOOC is air conditioned, and when rain falls, comes with its own rooftop pool. My only problem is that for most Bajans, a MOOC is a joke. Not that I mind, but when the ladies offer to take me out, they smilingly suggest that I can leave the MOOC in their car trunks. One day I took my MOOC to the mechanic to change the oil. He looked at the car and said disparagingly, I suggest you change the car and keep the oil. If I sell the MOOC, it would not be because of the jokes, but because of the recurring nightmare I have of being attacked while driving it in the streets of Barbados. I do not fear druggies or bandits or vagrants or, or tourists. What I fear most is arriving at the hospital with savage cuts, scratches, and bruises and telling the nurse that I was bitten by a dog. She says, where does this happen, sir? I say, in my car. She then asks soothingly and sympathetically, you mean your own dog bite you? I say, no, no, I was driving and the dog jumped in and bit me. She does not understand this. She says, it jumped through a window. I said, no. Is it some kind of Doberman or something? I said, no, it was not Doberman. It was a Pompek. And I drive a MOOC. Tony Deyal was last seen on Highway 7 frantically driving a red mook pursued by a large, hungry Great Dane named Marmaduke. Dad, I am so proud of you.
Thank you so much, Master Deyal. Very good. Nice seeing you. Now I welcome Devan Miraj. He's the son of Sam. Those of you who know anything about New York, son of Sam Miraj, former Secretary of the Sugarcane Union in Trinidad. Even as a young reporter for the Express in Trinidad, Devan was already an award-winning investigative journalism. Having graduated from the university in the US, Devan went out to work his way from among the ranks of the investigative journalists to the peak of his profession and then to the top of the paper he wrote for. He became the legendary that as a Trini boy who became, by merit, editor-in-chief in one of the top 3 newspapers in the United States, the Los Angeles Times. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a big deal. This is what he has written about himself in his 3 sentences. Devan was precocious kid who received early training from his mother, grandmothers, and others. At 17 years old, he marked mightily for the Trinidad Express and later as a foreign correspondent for the LA Times. He got to know Tony in his early days as a professional Mako. My friends, the man for minding your own business, Mr. Devan Miraj.
Thank you, Mr. Abdul. Can you guys hear me okay?
Hearing you loud and clear.
Great. It's an honor to be in the company of so many distinguished Caribbean people today. It's afternoon still in Los Angeles, so no drinks are being broken out just yet. Congrats, Tony. Major congrats on, and I'm so delighted to be celebrating your very impressive body of work. I have to say that Tony's columns remind me, as a fan of Calypso, that and the best Calypsonians, Tony's columns remind me of the best Calypsos. They are written in stanzas that exalt our distinct Caribbean language. It made me recall another Caribbean man of letters who described Calypso this way: the pure Calypso, the best Calypso, is incomprehensible to the outsider. We love Tony's columns because, to use a phrase that our Jamaican friend said earlier, we love Tony's columns because it's weeting. I chose to read Tony's piece about an encounter at Piaco Airport because I would give anything to be a fly on the wall when two great Caribbean men of letters bounce up. Like a great journalist, Tony put us there. So here goes. And this is I, as in Tony Deyal, went to Piaco Airport in Trinidad 2 Fridays ago, expecting to fly home to Antigua via Barbados. What I never anticipated was an almost 2-hour detour to the unlikeliest and yet most welcome of places, Memory Lane. So here it is, The King and I. I was sitting near the entrance of the first class lounge, drinking my money's worth of coffee and going through the compendium of crimes and political gossip that the front pages of the newspapers have become, when one of the attendants pushed in an older gentleman, cane in hand, like the baton of Superintendent Prospect, the founder and leader of the Trinidad and Tobago police band in its glory days, immortalized in the Mighty Sparrows Calypso, Shake Your Baton Like Mr. Prospect. It was not Prospect, and no mad woman was in the offing, perhaps deterred by the tight security outside the door. But it was Sparrow, and sharing his company was a prospect that not only pleased, but was sufficient to make my day, my month, and even some aspects of my existence. Internally, I shook with delight, like Mr. Prospect's baton. Externally, I was my usual suave, silky, smooth self. I know some of your calypsos that I'm sure you don't remember, I began. Remember, Sparrow, move your hand. Boy, look, move your hand. Sparrow, boy, I feeling shame. Move your hand. Tony promised to sing with me, but I'm not hearing him. That was not enough. I jumped hurriedly out of my seat, went and shook his hand, introduced myself in the context of the television programs I hosted in the days of yore. I then sang, afraid you make a calypso on me, not me. I don't want you to make a calypso on me. I know nobody could see, that is the only two are we, but afraid you make a calypso on me. That chorus, the negative and perfectly logical response from the delectable Lulu, was the prettiest woman in Trinidad, and you have me going staring mad, opened the door for me. And when asked by the attendant, where you want to sit, Sparrow made my day with, next to that gentleman. Then the floodgates opened. Tony Deyal Was Last Seen, regretting not asking Sparrow if he still envied the Congo man. Thank you. Congrats, Tony.
Thank you, Darren. It was a pleasure seeing you, sir. And I'm so happy you haven't given up cricket for baseball. By the way, I know your brother in Fort Lauderdale, so next time you're in South Florida, man, I'd like to meet you, okay?
Be there.
Okay.
Joyce.
So yes. All right, so now let me introduce you to a young couple that are very close to Tony, of course. George Deyal and his wife, Sarah. George is Tony's second child and oldest son. Would you believe he's a communications specialist working for Meta, also known as Facebook? And it is a team leader, and it's a team leader after less than 2 months there. George and Sarah couldn't be here with us this evening, but they sent this video. So let's take a quick look at this video from George and Sarah.
Hi, everybody. Dad, congrats on the book. I thought I would start with a quick story, and this might have been said already or it might be said later on, but there was a time when Dad was on TV when I was very young, and was the face of the nation of Trinidad and Tobago. What a face to be represent all of us. But and he'd be on TV every night doing what he does and talking about all sorts of things, the history of Trinidad, and to all the people who were important in the history of Trinidad as it unfolded. And he stopped that and became the PR manager at Caroni 1975 Limited and wasn't writing at the time. This is before the column started back up, I believe. And at some point we were in the airport in Canada or Miami, and a guy recognized him and said, "Hey, you used to be Tony Deyal." And you know, it's been a joke ever since that Dad kind of lost his name there when he went on TV, and he kind of was a used to be at one point. But I am glad with the column and with the book, Dad, that you were able to reclaim your name and all the fame that went with it in terms of people knowing more about you and your perspective and what you've done with your life. And we've grown up with it and with you, and so we know what's in the book before it's written, typically, and with every column. And so it's been central to our lives. And just because Dad is sort of a larger than life figure in a lot of ways. And so I hope you all enjoy seeing his perspective from a boy growing up in Carpachama, moving to Port of Spain on his own to go to elementary school, down to Siparia, moving out of the country to Canada, and just that whole journey. And so we were along for a lot of it. And I'm glad to look at it that way, and for all of you to sort of experience Trinidad through his eyes as he evolved and as the country changed. And it's sort of a recorded history of somebody who had interest in things to say about what they saw.
Yeah, and Tony, I'm forever will be grateful that before George and I left Trinidad, we got to celebrate your 74th birthday with you. And I think it was really Tony in his element. You were surrounded by friends and family and singing calypsos. And I just, it was one of those wonderful memories I'll have of Trinidad, and I'll have of you forever. I wish we lived closer so those sorts of experiences could happen on a regular basis. But, you know, we have this book and reading the stories, it makes you and makes Trinidad feel not so far away. It's such a lovely gift. It's going to have a special place in our home. And it's really a gift to our family. It's a gift to Trinidad, the Caribbean, and the greater diaspora. So thank you for sharing this gift of you, and thank you for sharing these stories with all of us. We are all so lucky to have it.
Thank you, George and Sarah. You look good on video, George. Oh, man. Thank you again, George. Pleasure seeing you, buddy. For those who read Tony's works, the reason he got his wife and children to be involved is that most of you know them from his articles. George is the man who, when told he was Indian, said, "But I don't have no feathers." And our next speaker, when he arrived in Trinidad at 3 years old, was told he was Indian. He said bluntly, "I am not Indian, I am Barbadian." Tony was and continues to be Zubin's bowling machine. Tony admits that he follows in Zubin's footsteps instead of Zubin following in his. Tony has become a hall chairman at the age of 24. Zubin did it at age 18. Tony got his first at 29, first degree. Zubin did it at 19. However, Tony excels over Zubin in one area where he can walk and talk. Tony wears size 12, extra wide shoes, and Zubin only wears a size 12. It is a total pleasure of mine to get a chance, a young kid I've admired, enjoyed talking to, looking forward to one day going to Lord's and seeing him walk out with Oxford University. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Zubin Deyal.
Thank you very much, Uncle Kamal, for that very kind introduction. I must say that I don't think I'll ever fit Dad's size 12 extra wide shoes. I'm still at 11, and I don't think I'll ever reach that size 12. But now I think, just to start off, Dad and I both share a love of cricket. Growing up, we would play cricket every day in the backyard when he came home from work. No matter how tired he was, he would always bowl to me. We would watch matches for hours. Sometimes I ignored my schoolwork, to my mother's dismay. Even to this day, at the tender young age of 76, Dad still takes the occasional practice, shocking both verdant and veteran batsmen alike, and still, sometimes, and it's taking a lot for me to say this, even getting me out. Now, when he decided to put this book together, I was ecstatic. The book represents a fulfilled life, a regionalist who has brought joy to millions of people in the Caribbean and the world beyond. I think it is this tangible positive impact, this happiness that my dad's columns have brought over 30 years, that is most meaningful. We would often get stopped in the public by fans of Dad's work, who'd heap praises onto him for the joy he brings them every Saturday morning. And now I have the distinct privilege of reading a piece which brings me a lot of joy. A Blade Apart, Dad's very first column about a little-known batsman some of you may be familiar with, Brian Lara. Now, Brian had struck again, not just fours, but another century. And if I did not hurry to the office, the boss would think too that I had struck, and like the Star Wars Empire would strike back. Even as I lathered up, getting ready to shave, the crickets and Lara were still on my mind. Perhaps I should write something, I thought. Razor in hand, I mused some more. Why are cricket bats referred to as blades? Perhaps it has to do with the fact that cricket, like so many of our other sports, is essentially a war game, a surrogate for our atavism, a release for our hostility, replacing armed combat between tribes and nations. Now, instead of doing battle with sword and lance, both Murray and Gibbs having retired, We do it with bats and ball. If the bat is a blade and our batsmen are swordsmen, how do they compare with the knights of old? We have Sir Gary and Sir Frank, but what about the other lords and knights? This short excerpt reveals Dad's extraordinary writing abilities. Here, the connection is between cricket and shaving, and the issue he is addressing is, who are the Caribbean heroes of today? Who are our modern day knights? This is something he does often, connecting seemingly disparate subjects in a way few others could, exploring these connections through a lens of humor, all to reveal to the reader a much deeper meaning than ever anticipated. And he did this 52 times a year for over 3 decades. That's a long time to be funny for. And now, 30 years since his first column, I sit here, immensely honored to present at his book launch, immensely proud of all that he's accomplished, and most of all, immensely grateful that I get to call him my dad. I love you, Pops.
Thank you, Zubin. Very good job, buddy. All the best. I am sure all of you know Indrani by now, by being written about by Tony or writing articles every Saturday in the Kaiti News, newspaper of Guyana. This is what Indrani says about her first meeting and subsequently. According to the song, Indrani Deyal is a Georgetown girl who grew up in the southern backstreets to become a reporter, a journalist, and a columnist. At an IBM media workshop in Washington in 1992, she met a short, pompous, talkative man and fumed to her friends about the arrogant so-and-so, Trini. She's the arrogant so-and-so Trini. Neither could stand each other. Many years, 2 children, and a whole book later, it has all gone downhill from foggy bottom. When Tony next met Indrani, she was the news editor of the Guyana Chronicle and had won the Guyana Media Award for Excellence in Health Journalism. The same excellence she was noted for led her to select Tony, he says that. What she says is different. She attracts birds and other wild creatures and claims she's an animal magnet. This is how she ended up with Tony. Ladies and gentlemen, instead of clapping hands, why don't we say a woof woof as Indrani Deyal takes the microphone?
Woof woof. Hi, Kamal. Good night. Good night, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Tony has had his dream for years, writing a book, and I would like to thank everyone who took part in it. And tonight, it means a lot to us. And I also thank the readers because we write, but if nobody reads it, it's not worth a thing. Some of my best memories with Tony and the family have been in Belize and Antigua, Barbados, but particularly in the green spaces. So tonight I'll read a piece that he wrote in June 2011, Father's Day. And this is in one of my favorite places. That's under the grove of neem trees in the backyard. It doesn't have much humor, but I think it reflects what we have stressed in our lives together, the value as a family. I sat under the spreading neem tree in our yard in Antigua last Saturday, thinking that while with my advancing age, I might soon become a forefather, I was content at this stage to be a father of 4. 2 are with me in Antigua, and last Sunday we're busy setting the table under the neem tree for Father's Day breakfast. What's in a neem, you ask? Neem is a species of mahogany and is famous for its medicinal properties. Neem is also supposed to be a contraceptive and spermicide, but that knowledge comes 4 children too late. Not that I would trade my children, even retrospectively, for any name-bound outer garment. One just has to see the last two children busily preparing to make Father's Day memorable for me to wish for more. I know that in China, I would have been jailed for life for exceeding the progeny limit. But here in the Caribbean, we have no such strictures. In India, I might have boasted only of 2 sons and leave in darkness the fate of my daughters. Here, under the Caribbean sun, our daughters are as precious as our sons. Zubin helped his mother with the fry bakes. He even carved Dad on one and had to stop my absent-minded daughter Jasmine from eating it. The bakes were really the accompaniment to the main event, saltfish that was desalinated in a bowl of water the night before and then sauteed with garlic, onions, tomatoes, sweet peppers, hot peppers, carrots, shadow benny or culantro, and chive. My love for saltfish is legendary and evident, as some may say, in my fathering 4 children. From Belize, where the bakes are called fried jacks and Johnny cakes, we've also acquired a taste for black beans and grated cheese. The first avocado of the season sat proudly on the table, and though cut up, was not angry. It had to be proud to be invited to the party in the first place. A few years ago, we bought a secondhand picnic table and some chairs and put them under the neem tree so that we could enjoy the breeze from the nearby Atlantic Ocean. This Sunday, like most of the preceding and succeeding days, was hot and oppressive indoors, but very cool outdoors in the shade of the neem tree. Jasmine set the table and had to sit holding down the tablecloth to keep the strong breeze from sending it flying to Barbuda until I came out and relieved her. Our 2 dogs, Crix and his son Bungie, knew that something was up and rushed out to join us, reveling in the day in the presence of the entire family, including my mother. We both thought of my father, who died several years ago, and how much he would have loved being here with us and the grandchildren he had never seen. Like all of us, he had his faults and weaknesses, but I never doubted his love for me. It was enough for 4 fathers or more. In the meantime, gifts were produced. These were all within limited budgets, but even more appreciated because of the hard times that have characterized our last few years. Antigua has been good to us, and away from the murders, hijackings, and political hijinks that increasingly characterize Trinidad, we have bonded very closely as a family. I take my children to school and leave them there without any fear that I would receive a ransom note and risk losing them. We sit under the shade of the neem without any fear of gunmen jumping over the low ornamental concrete fence and forcing us inside. If there is a moral to all of this, it is that we all have to try to make the best of what we have. It is the lesson of the neem tree. It is the name of the game. Tony Deyal was last seen saying that Father's Day always worries him. He's afraid he will get a gift he can't afford. Thank you.
Before we end, I just wanted my cousin Gregory, the Monsignor, who I know went through agony in the airport in Miami. I want to invite him to say a few words and to do his piece, and then we'll come back to me, and I'll just wish to thank everybody, and we end the show. Gregory, where are you?
Oh, can you guys hear me? And girls?
Yes.
First of all, I want to apologize profusely. I really, Tony, I'm very sorry on my own behalf and behalf of everybody else. But, you know, for being late and so on. Anyway, I just want to say that I really admire Tony and his work. He shares it with me every now and then. When I can, I read the columns, of course. And this part he wrote about Kavichima and so on. And I heard his daughter Indrani, his daughter call his full name Shunun. Yes, it's Shunun.
I get mixed up too.
That's his real name. His real name is Shunun. Real, R-E-E-L. Name is Shunun. And he talked in No Peace in the Valley about Sadhu. That man was named Sadhu when Tony was riding a bike with him. His real name was Happy-Do, but his other name was Sadhu whenever Tony was with him. But really, no. Living in different countries in the last 30 years, and so every time we had Tony's column, and there were a few trainees around in England or Boston or wherever it is, it was an amazing thing to sit and go through some of Tony's shenanigans. In fact, I could see Indrani there telling Tony, why you always writing book? Why you don't write a book rather than all those stupid wordplay you have in your head? And Tony said, finally, that's a novel idea. And there we have it. So, really, I want to thank you, Tony, and I want to thank all of you. I'm sorry again, but and thank Father de la Bastide for doing the prayers. One thing I want to tell you, Tony, there was a stationery shop in Carichama we used to go to, but I went there a few years ago and it moved. You got it? I know it's only Tony alone will get that joke. Anyway, stationery moved. Anyway, God bless you all. Thank you. This is a joy. I'm really glad, and I want to say a prayer for everybody who attended this in body, in spirit, in mind. Lord, we want to thank you so much for the marvelous gifts you have given us in everyone present at this here tonight. We ask you to bless us, help us to continue spreading Caribbean culture in the world, and to give us the grace to continue to love and serve you in such a manner that you will be blessed as we are blessed. We ask all this in your most precious name. Amen. Thank you very much. Bless you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much, my favorite cousin, Monsignor Gregory Ampison. I want to thank all of you who were part of it, who watched it, who listened to it. And I want to end with the last, but not least, my second daughter, Jasmine, who put together a poster for us that comes on screen with with background music from one plastic bag, ending our show. Thank you all very, very much. My show.
When I was a youth, poor and only want you at carnival time.